Hello, and welcome back to the Chronically Ill Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Jane, and today we have two special guests, Vanessa and Adriana. I met them both about 6 years ago on my Lupus Instagram account back in the day. I was lucky enough to have them both on and willing to share their personal stories on lupus and pregnancy. It was a really fun conversation, but just a quick disclaimer, we really do dive into all aspects and possibilities of pregnancy and lupus that include complications. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we jump into this episode. It was super fun, and I loved how we were able to get two different perspectives on two different women that had successful pregnancies while battling lupus. Okay, let's jump right into this episode. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this one. Okay, why don't we just get started? Because I feel like there's so much that we could talk about, and I don't want to keep you guys here all day on a Saturday. But first of all, I'm very excited. I am very nervous because I've never had two people on before. I'm super excited. But I wanted to give you both a chance to just quickly introduce yourself to the listeners, but also to each other, real quick. So, who wants to take the floor first?
I'll go. Hi, Adriana. I'm Vanessa. I live in Gilroy, California. I have three kids. The oldest is going to be 16 and my youngest is 1. But I was not diagnosed with lupus until after my 6-year-old was born. So a little more recent. I didn't have any kind of lupus stuff going on with either of those pregnancies. It was just my last one. So.
Which is crazy because you said your oldest is 16.
Yes.
So 10 years later, when you were pregnant with her, you found out.
No, it wasn't until after. It was after her first birthday. So she's 6 now, so it was about 5 years ago that so it was still kind of new to me. Lupus, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know anything about it. I don't have any family members that have lupus. It was a big shocker. It was a big shocker.
Definitely. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And Adriana, go ahead.
So, hi. Thank you for having me again. Hi, Vanessa. Nice
Hi.
to virtually meet you. My name is Adriana, and I've had lupus for 25 years now. I think I already said that I'm from San Diego. Yeah, my journey to motherhood was a very hard one. I am so lucky because I do have a 10-year-old daughter. Her name is Penelope. She's a sassy little 5th grader right now. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here and kind of, share journey about becoming a mother and what it was like for me.
Awesome. All right. Before we get started too, I'd like to say I met both of you guys, if you're wondering like why there's just two random people you don't know. I met you both on Instagram back in the day, and I just feel like both of you guys have always been so supportive of me. I hope that you feel the same way. I don't know, I just felt like you both are just such amazing women, and you both have had successful, beautiful pregnancies and babies, and so I thought you guys would be perfect for today's podcast. So yeah.
Okay, can I touch in on that for a second?
Yeah.
I know that you think that like, oh, you met us, but really, I think I found you when I first got diagnosed. And I, like I said, had no clue what lupus was. I was like, we were still learning about it. And I did, a little deep dive on Instagram, and that's when I found you. And I cannot tell you how happy I was to find you. And I told my husband, I was like, look, I found someone, and look at, they have this and they have this, and it's just like me. And it was, well, that's not like me, but this was like me. And it was just like, it was such a different, I had never met anyone else who was as open as you and actually shared real things, not just memes and not just quotes and not just some of the stuff that I see on some of the other lupus Instagrams, and it was just so different connecting it to an actual person. And then seeing you go through your kidney journey. I cried. I told my husband, I want to give her my kidney, but my kidneys are crap. Like, what do we do? What do we do? Like, we were just rooting for you so much the entire time. And so, it was such an amazing thing to see you and where you've progressed in where you're at now. And it was inspiring, absolutely inspiring. So, thank you for also being so open with what you were going through, because I know it was not easy.
Well,
Not at all.
thank you for saying that because it's funny because I think I had lupus for maybe like 7 years or something before I started sharing it. And I don't remember why I decided I wanted to start sharing it, but it was in 2019 and it was right when I moved to San Diego and I felt very depressed and alone. And I don't know, like I just was like, it's time. Like something in me was like, it's time to tell people because before that, you would never catch me saying that I have lupus ever, ever. No one knew what it was. They just knew that I was sick before and I'm doing good. Like that was always what it was. I could not talk about it without breaking down and crying or whatever, or being mad. And so that that really makes me feel good because yeah, that was the whole point, just to build a community, and I was lucky enough to meet a lot of amazing people, but um yeah, like thank you. Thank you. I stalked both of you to see if you were following each other and you aren't. So I'm like, you guys would definitely be a good connect because you both have similar but very different journeys. But yeah, so and you both share a lot, so it's good. So thank you. That made my day. I like almost started crying, honestly.
Oh no, like it was, you're super inspiring. And to see you with, how you just continue to live your life. I think when I first got diagnosed, like everything stopped. That's what I felt like. Everything stopped for me. And then seeing you being able to still go and work out and go and on your vacations and still doing what you need to do, but then also seeing the other side of you with your pills all the time and all the shipments of medication and all of your medical stuff. It's like there is that other side that not a lot of people understand.
If I was able to keep my kidneys under control for the rest of my life, that I wish I cared more when it started going downhill and didn't do the things I did to lead me to here. Um, but yeah, I forgot where I was going with that sentence, but but yes, but thank you again. Um, yeah, it's been a long road, and now I honestly, once turned the Instagram I have now into just a my normal Instagram, I just kind of stopped sharing. Like I have that other account, but I don't know. It's like it's weird that I don't really share that much anymore, and that's why I kind of like this podcast more because I'm more of a talker than I am a poster, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's been hard for me lately to even think about posting, but I don't know, hearing that makes me want to do it again because, yeah, and honestly, on this podcast, people from all over the world listen to this, which is crazy to me. So we're really getting info out there, and I don't know, I think it's just so important. And Adriana, you do a lot of talks and things that I've
I
been
do.
seeing. So
I
what
do.
what kind of have you been up to lately? Because it seems like you're doing a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
I am doing a lot of stuff. So I work very closely with Lupus Research Alliance and Lupus Therapeutics. I am actually working with Therapeutics as they're called the PAL, so they're patient advocate for lupus studies. So what we do is we're essentially a peer counselor, and we encourage patients to, we educate and encourage patients to sign up for clinical trials, and then we become their trial buddy and we follow them along their clinical trial process. With that also comes a lot of speaking engagements and things of that sort. So I had the privilege of going to speak to this huge biomedical pharmaceutical company this past week called Artivia. The next thing in lupus treatment is cell therapy, and they are working on a version of CAR T therapy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with CAR T therapy, cell
Mhm.
therapy. So CAR T therapy has been used to in the oncology space for several years, and it's been used to treat several different forms of cancer and cancerous tumors. So now these companies are going, basically, they're battling each other out. Lots of pharmaceutical companies are coming in to try to come up with their own either NK cell therapy, which are off the shelf. They re-engineer your cells, basically kill off all your B cells, re-engineer your cells. And the studies that have been published show that the patients that have done cell therapy have been in remission without medication for quite a long time. So it is very exciting stuff.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that I am involved in that I am not allowed to say because I have signed NDAs and things that are is not like public knowledge yet. But I do want you to know that there are amazing things that are in the works, and these companies are really working hard to give us treatment options.
Mhm.
Um, and I encourage both of you or anybody that is listening. I know how hard it is to have your doctor even mention a clinical trial. So I encourage you to speak to your medical team, ask them if there's research trials that you can participate or clinical trials that you qualify for. I know a lot of them have very specific um, criteria that you have to meet, but I think that cell therapy is really the next thing, and I think it is like a glimmer of hope that maybe a cure might be on the horizon because it is very promising stuff.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh, that's so amazing. I um I saw not too long ago, I don't know if this goes together, but they granted like so much money for lupus research recently. And I don't know, when I saw that, I just got so excited because luckily I don't really have symptoms. Like it's been in remission for a while, but just the thought of like
Mhm.
there may be a day when no one gets diagnosed with lupus again. Like, I don't know, that just sounds so amazing. Like, I don't know, but no,
Mhm.
that sounds so amazing. I'm actually, my new job has to do with kind of like regeneration of not cells, but like tissues. And that's going
Mhm.
to kind of be my new role when I'm in San Diego. So, yeah, I totally believe that that is like a possibility and everything for us as lupus patients. But yes, that I can't wait to hear more like down the line, whatever. But wow, that's amazing stuff that you're doing. I was thinking about that this morning that I am so nervous and you just talk out there to a bunch of people and I'm over here like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to two people today on Zoom. I'm scared.
Yeah, yeah. It's intimidating sometimes to go into these rooms, because it's a lot of scientists and doctors, big people like, CEOs and COOs of like big companies and, big foundations that I get to meet.
Yes. And it's honestly very cool and amazing to have someone now that we know like in there advocating for us. And it's not just doctors and it's not just people that like went to school for this. Like it's someone that's living through it and could give input, insight, everything. So no, that's amazing what you're doing. It's very amazing. So thank you.
Mhm.
But we need to get started. I also wanted to just let you guys know that I wanted to make this more of a conversation-based podcast. So I don't really want to just ask you questions and you guys answer or whatever. Like, feel free at any moment. You can ask a question to each other, ask me a question. I don't really know how that would help, but but change the subject, whatever it is, and feel free to just lead it wherever you would like to. I kind of was mentioning to Vanessa, there's not much out there when it comes to women sharing their story with lupus and becoming pregnant. So for people that want to become pregnant or they accidentally become pregnant sometime, there's really nothing out there besides doctors giving like facts about it. And it's kind of scary to watch, honestly, especially I want to become pregnant, but watching those videos, I'm like, okay, this isn't really giving me information I want to hear to prepare me for what's ahead because it's, I'm sure, a long journey. Um, so yeah, with that being said, just kind of sharing as much or as little as you feel comfortable with, and I think this is going to be a great conversation with you guys. So basically, when I became like an age where I could become pregnant, my rheumatologist at the time started telling me like whenever the day comes, you need to be very prepared. You can't just get pregnant. You need to just let us know, and we need a plan, and we need to change your medicine, and this, and that. So, for you guys, was it the same situation, or was it more of I got pregnant and now I'm figuring it out, or what kind of happened in your guys' situation? Vanessa, you can start us off if you would like.
Well, I think my story is going to be a little bit different because I do have it's two different. It was actually two different pregnancies. So a year after my daughter was born, I found out I was pregnant. This is before I knew I had lupus. But I found out I was pregnant. And I felt sick, like kind of like flu-like symptoms. And I just figured it was early pregnancy stuff. And it got to a point where I was getting like a really high fever. And my husband said, no, we need to take you to the emergency. And I was like, all right. And I went in and I was swelling. My body had started swelling, which to me was very bizarre. It started in my ankles. And we went in, they gave me x-rays. They said, oh, there's some fluid in your chest. You have pneumonia. And I said, oh, okay, that explains it. But what about my swelling? And they said, oh, it's just your pregnancy. I'm like, I'm only 8, 9 weeks. There's no way. You don't swell like this. And so they sent me on my way. 2 weeks later, my entire face swelled up like I had a bee sting. I could barely open my eyes. My legs were swelling. My husband said, absolutely not. Something's wrong. So we called the advice nurse. They said, yeah, that doesn't sound right. Come on in again. We went to the emergency. They took me in. They said, no, something else is going on. They did some blood work. And at that point, they said, you have lupus. And we had no clue. We were like, wait, what? What does that mean? And they said, well, this is what it is. And it gave me a very brief explanation. This is what it is. We have another appointment for you. You need to go see a specialist for your pregnancy right now. And we were like, what? And we literally got shoved into another room. And they said, you're going to have to, basically, you have two choices. You continue this pregnancy, we can't put you on any medication. This pregnancy has caused what they called an extreme flare up. So the pregnancy is what triggered my lupus because I never knew I had it. And it went from 0 to 100. And they were like, you need to do this now. So your choices are you continue the pregnancy, you will probably go into heart failure, your baby's lungs won't develop. Like it was just the chances of you even carrying this pregnancy beyond 20 weeks is very low. So it would be a premature baby with probably lung problems, probably heart problems. You could have a heart attack, all of this stuff. Or you can terminate your pregnancy and we can put you on the medication because we cannot put you on medication while you're pregnant. So at that point, I was only 11 weeks pregnant. They said, you have 1 week to make this decision. And so we were like, we had 2 children already. I was like, I can't risk this. We didn't even know what we were getting ourselves into. We were like, but what is lupus? Like we were still trying to figure out what that was on top of what do we do about the pregnancy? And I knew I have 2 children right now. I have to be here to take care of them. So we had to terminate our pregnancy. in order to start a very, very intense round of medication. They did a biopsy on me. I was already at stage 4 kidney disease. And at that time, I think they said it only went up to stage 5. I think there's a stage 6 now that they've added. But during that time, they're like, you're on the verge of dialysis. This was all within a week of me finding out that I had lupus.
Oh my God.
So and it was my daughter's first birthday, and we were like, what is going on? Like, trying to even accept the fact that I was just diagnosed with this disease that I had no clue about. Having to, process the idea of having an abortion, having to process like just everything at the same time, that I could die regardless of what happens. I had no clue what was happening. And so that was just one of the darkest times of my life. And I disassociated a lot. Like, there are a lot of things that happened that I just don't remember. Because I completely disassociated myself from what was happening. Like, I was outside of my body watching all of this happen to somebody else.
I feel like that's very common, honestly. I feel like I've done that. I've blacked out periods of my life when it was very traumatic. And I think it's a coping mechanism that sucks, but you just have like let it happen sometimes. And it's crazy when you realize that you don't remember part of your life. But
well, I can go and look back at pictures now, and I see what I look like when I was on the very, very high levels of prednisone, and I had the full moon face, and I lost probably 70% of my hair at one point. And so I had no hair, moon face, like, I look at it, I'm like, that wasn't me. There's no way that was me. I don't remember those things, but I look back, I'm like, but it was real. That happened to me. And it's such a weird thing to kind of put reality with the pictures or the videos or other things that you see. And it doesn't feel real. It still doesn't feel real.
right.
But
Yeah.
but it was a very big part of that. And so it was a hard thing to process and to get through, but I knew we needed to focus on me getting better. And it was a very long journey to get to where I'm at now, but I stuck with, it was extreme medication. We did the whole dietary change. I went gluten-free, dairy-free. I did all of that stuff in the beginning, and I'm not anymore. I definitely eat gluten and dairy now. Like, I could not do dairy-free pizza. It was disgusting. So
Yeah.
it was just, but it was a lifestyle change for sure. I do notice, going out in the heat, especially right now, it affects me so much, so much. But my daughter was only a year at the time, chasing her around, but where I was still to a point where I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't even move because my edema had gotten so bad. I could not move. And I couldn't wear regular clothes. I couldn't wear shoes. I had to wear the slippers for diabetic people that kind of like just Velcro on and off. Um, it was just a complete transformation from who I was. And it was hard, but we mostly just try to focus on me getting better. And I think that really helped with me to not focus on the loss of my pregnancy, and just trying to get better for my kids was a big motivation. And then when we were ready to try again, our doctors, it was a big thing. Like you said, at that point, once they knew I had lupus, they were like, okay, well, this is what we have to do. I had to switch my medication for a year. They said, we need to change you to something else so that it's compatible with pregnancy. And we need to make sure you're going to be okay. So I had to be on a different medication for a year, continue with my labs as they monitored them to make sure that I was still going to be compatible with this new medication. Then once that happened, I was on birth control. I had an IUD. They said, okay, once you take it out, it's probably going to take a while before this happens.
Yeah.
And it didn't. I got pregnant in 2 weeks.
Oh
we were
my
we were
gosh.
we were shocked. So that once I became pregnant, we were very hyper focused, hyper aware of everything that was happening to me. I had a really good medical team. Um, they monitored me very closely.
Mhm.
And I had to, and I don't know, Adriana, if you had to do this, but I had to go in, it felt like every 2 weeks to have the baby monitored. In the beginning, I don't remember how far it went up to, but it was from the beginning point until I want to say until maybe I was about 6 months. They had to monitor the baby's heart because apparently with lupus, while you're pregnant with lupus, you can transmit some sort of a heart condition to your baby. I don't have a heart condition. I don't have a lung condition. It's just my kidneys, but it can cause a non-development of something in the heart. And so the baby's heart had to get monitored like every 2 weeks. So that was definitely a big stressor because I felt like, what if they find something wrong with the baby and it was my fault? Like we did this to our baby because we wanted to have a baby. Now we're going to have a baby with a heart condition because of us or because of me. So that was a really hard thing to have to do every time I went into the doctor thinking I was going to cause my baby harm,
Mhm.
that something was going to happen because of me. But we got past that point, and it was one of the happiest. Then I felt like I could finally breathe and I can enjoy my pregnancy, and everything was fine. He was born healthy as can be, no health problems. And then they tell you, oh, your point of being where you could relapse again is 6 weeks after postpartum. So then they had to monitor me, the postpartum part, to make sure that my kidneys didn't fail during that time. And it's a lot to be focused on, a lot to be aware of. So you're going through all these stresses as being pregnant, and now you have to be hyper focused on other things as well. And it's a lot. It's a lot. So one, being pregnant and not knowing and having the doctors have to do all that stuff, to prep you for it. And then it's another thing to be super aware of everything that, to look for warning signs, and to look, constantly contacting doctors and the nephrologist. And it's a lot on top of pregnancy is a lot. So pregnancy with lupus is definitely, it's a lot. I don't know how else to say it. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with, but
No, I agree with you without even having to go through it because just even having to be diagnosed during a time of that and then having to do everything you had to go through and then to become pregnant again and to probably be terrified of having to go through a pregnancy and not knowing what's going to happen now. And now you have all these other factors into play. You're not just you having a baby like everyone else in the world. You're just like have to think about so many things. And I feel like that's the main concern for most women with lupus. It's like you really don't know, and everyone's story is so different when it comes to
yeah.
getting pregnant. You don't know how your body's going to react to this baby developing inside of you. Um, Adriana, what kind of happened with you? Were you like planning it out?
Okay.
Did you know about her?
Yeah. So mine is very different. So I am a pediatric case. So I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 13. So I basically lived my entire life with lupus. When I was diagnosed in 1999, there wasn't really medication. There was relatively very few treatments. Salcept was even new to the treatment of lupus,
Yeah.
which is now used like one of the most common medications, especially if you have nephritis. Um, I was told from a very young age that I was never going to be able to have children, that having children was never going to be in the cards for me. Like that was something that, but like at 13, like like, why are you telling me this? Like, I just want to be a teenager. Like, I just want to feel
Yeah.
better. So once I got to the point, once I got married and I uh, decided that I wanted to find a team that was going to help me get through this journey, I didn't take into consideration the fact that all the drugs that I had taken, basically my all teen and all through my 20s, caused infertility. I had to do chemotherapy for years, and all those things cause infertility. So I had a very hard time just even being able to, get pregnant on top of, having to deal with changing my medication. I was on Celsip at the time, so I had to stop it. I had to clear my body from it. I had to like change the way, just like Vanessa said, I had to change the way that I was taking the medications. And so I ended up going to a fertility doctor, and we went through all the testing. She was hesitant about helping us just because of the level of kidney disease that I have. I have stage 3B right now. So, and it's been like that for a while. So she was very hesitant because she didn't think that it would be, um, she didn't know how fertility drugs and things like that would affect my lupus and my kidneys because she never had anybody. But she was very kind and she really resonated with my story and she agreed to help. So I went through all the testing, everything they do, like a crazy amount of testing. We decided that we were going to go the IVF route, all that stuff. And then I go to an appointment to like right before I was going to get like lessons on how to do the injections, all that stuff. And then by some miracle, they did a pregnancy test and I found out that I was pregnant.
So
Oh my
you found out at
gosh.
like your or not at your
I
nephrologist?
found out I found out at the fertility clinic, like my fertility doctor,
Oh,
right before I was going to start all the, because they have to,
They
they
give
test
you
you
they give you a
like,
pregnancy test prior to,
yes,
yeah. Oh my
prior to starting, yeah, all that stuff.
gosh.
And I like, and I was like, this is not real. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And everything was going, like Vanessa said, I had a perinatologist. So I encourage anybody that is looking to have a baby, find yourself a very good high risk pregnancy doctor. They're called perinatologists, and that's who followed me throughout my pregnancy. Um, Hopefully, you can find somebody that has like a big group because, and they have privileges to a good hospital that's going to have a good NICU because you never know what will happen. So I feel like that's just something that I should like put out there. Like, make sure that you find a good high risk pregnancy doctor, and they have a good, team of doctors at their practice because it's always great to have lots of, opinions and, things. So my pregnancy went really well in the beginning, and like Vanessa, I had to go very often to go get ultrasounds. And then one day I went in for an ultrasound, and they didn't let me leave. They told me that something was wrong. And obviously the tech can't say anything. And she said, let me come. I was probably like 25, 26 weeks or something like that.
Mhm.
And then the doctor came in and she told me that the baby, I was having something with the blood from the umbilical cord. It flows like a heartbeat. So it's supposed to, so the baby gets like the nutrients. It's supposed to be like a continuous pump from mom to baby so that the baby breathe, eat, grow, everything that it gets from mom. Unfortunately, with me, what was happening is that we were having like delays. So it would pump and then kind of not really do anything, but then kind of start back up again. And it's supposed to be like a heartbeat that continuously going. So at it was 26 weeks. So at 26 weeks, I was admitted into the hospital. We have a great hospital here called Mary Birch, and they have a top tier. It's a top tier women's hospital with like one of the best NICUs in the entire country. And I was put on bed rest, and I was in the hospital until my daughter was born on July 4th. And she was born at 30 weeks, but she was measuring at 27. So she was 2 pounds, 4 ounces. And she lived in the NICU for 5 weeks. And on August 8th, she got to come home. And, they gave me, and I also was diagnosed, which was like, let's just throw something else in there with gestational diabetes. So that was like also like an added thing. Thankfully, I was in the hospital. So like I was insulin dependent. So like the nurses just came in and they would check my sugar. I'd give them my finger. Like it wasn't anything extra that I had to do, which is great because as much as I'm used to like getting blood drawn and shots and all the surgeries that I've done, giving myself injections is like my biggest fear, which is an odd thing to have. But
It's
yeah,
it's the worst.
yeah,
It's the worst.
I'm just like, I'm a big baby when it comes to doing stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, we knew that she was coming. We prepared the best that we could. We prepared her lungs as best we could. She got 2 rounds of this. They give you these steroids to help mature baby's lungs, and I was able to get 2 rounds of that before she was born. And the morning of July 4th, we did like one final ultrasound. She wasn't really moving. I wasn't really doing well. My kidney function was, really decreasing. And that morning I woke up. I wasn't feeling good. Baby wasn't moving. They checked her. She hadn't really grown anything in the past, week. And she was just not going to thrive with me anymore. And she was going to do better in the outside world than she was with me. She is, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was going to ask when you first got pregnant and you went to go see these doctors, did they tell you anything about the risks of your pregnancy and that this could happen, around? Because I specifically remember this being, kind of the scary point was around 20 weeks, around 20 to 24 weeks, you probably won't be able to carry your baby any further than that. So I don't know if that was just like, is this a common thing? Because you said it happened to you around 26 weeks. Did they tell you the same thing?
Yeah. So from the very beginning, the doctors were very honest with me. And even when I was in the hospital, it always came down, if it came down to me or baby, it was always going to be me. They didn't allow me to share that I was pregnant up until, I think I shared maybe till I was like 16 weeks that I was pregnant, because they didn't know if it was going to be viable. I knew all the risk associated with it. They were my doctors were great in communicating, not just the perinatologist, but also my rheumatologist, nephrologist, and my team behind of priority was always going to be me. Even when they were wheeling me into, to get my C-section, they said, if something happens, it's not going to be baby, it's going to be you.
Yeah.
So I was very aware of the risks associated with it. I was very aware of, there's an added thing too, right? Of you're also dealing with neonatologists, and these are doctors that are specifically for babies that are born prematurely. So I'm also dealing with everything and processing everything that could happen to me, but also processing and, listening to everything that could be wrong with my daughter. I was lucky. She was able to come out of the NICU at 30 weeks. She was tiny. She was only 4 pounds, but she was born on July 4th. Her due date was September 10th.
Oh my gosh.
And originally they told me that I was going to be in the hospital till I was hospitalized in June, and they're like, you will be here until she's born in September.
No.
So
No.
yeah.
Well, that's
and
one
I was on strict bed rest. I was only allowed 30 minutes in a wheelchair every day to go outside and get some air. Otherwise, I had to be in bed the
Oh
entire
my
time.
God.
So that was very hard mentally
Yeah.
Of
because,
course.
yeah.
Well, that's one of my biggest fears because, okay, so I kind of identify now as I'm like a kidney transplant person now. It like in my
Hmm.
head, anything that I feel, I'm like, it's my kidney, it's my kidney. And I forget that the reason I even had that problem was because of lupus. And I like don't even remember life when it was my lupus causing issues. I only remember it because it was so dramatic for 4 years of my kidneys causing all these problems. So now, like thinking back about what the lupus can do to lead to that is like I haven't even talked about this in so long, honestly. It's like reminding me of so many things, but my biggest fear is getting pregnant and them telling me that I am going to be bedridden for the remainder of my pregnancy. That is like one of my biggest fears because I just don't mentally. I mean, I know I could do it, but the thought of me putting myself in a situation where that is a possibility is kind of something where I'm like, do I want this? I do. But do I? Because that's so like hard.
Yeah. It's
It's
very scary.
temporary, but it sounds scary. Like,
Yeah, it's very scary. And it's a very realistic fear. It's because it has happened. There is women that have very difficult pregnancies, but there are a lot of women that have very successful pregnancies and they're very healthy throughout their entire pregnancy and their kidneys are stable and their lupus is stable. So I just encourage you or anybody else that's listening is to focus on the positive until you have to deal with something negative. I think
Hmm.
that's really important. And to be honest, I always knew that I wanted to be a mom. Like that was something that was just like I wanted it for myself. And no matter what way that came, whether it was adopting, surrogacy, or if I carried my own child, I was going to be a mom. So sometimes um, reminding yourself that there are other ways to become a mom, that there isn't necessarily just you having a baby,
Hmm.
is not the only way to become a mom. If it's something that you really want, I think there's other ways to be a mom.
Your guys' stories, they are different, but it's kind of like obviously the same stressors, the same type of thing that you kind of went through. So how like did the recovery process look like for you guys? Because I know Vanessa, you mentioned now you're dealing with the postpartum. They say that within 6 weeks you guys can flare. Did you guys have any symptoms of flaring afterwards, or was it just kind of the typical healing process and moving forward?
Honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell you. It was a blur for me because she was like my priority was going to see my baby in the hospital every day.
Yeah.
Like so even if I was feeling whatever I was dealing with, it was probably like is like secondary. I mean, having a C-section is really hard. Like that was really hard on my body because it is a major, like mega surgery. And the type of C-section that I had, it wasn't like a traditional C-section. So I had the incision from the outside was low, but on the inside it's like an upside down T. So it's a lot harder to recover from that type of C-section versus like the traditional where they just cut from the inside and the outside at the bottom. So yeah, but for me, it was just, I was just focused on, and I lived in the hospital. Like I was there every day from
Yeah.
like 8 in the morning to like 11 o'clock at night. Just,
Yeah.
even though I couldn't hold her or do anything, I was just there.
Yeah, that makes sense, honestly. Vanessa, what about you? Did you experience anything in those weeks when they were like testing you all that time?
it was really hard to determine what part. I mean, you have a baby, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
So how much of my exhaustion is I just had a baby? I'm getting used to this new schedule. My body, I did not have a C-section. But while I was in the hospital, because I did tell them that this was our last, I can't get pregnant again. I'm so scared I can't get pregnant again. So I got my tubes tied. They told me I would have to wait 6 weeks after the baby was born to do it. But when I was there, they said, "Do you want to go do it now?" And I was like, "I can do this now." And they're like, "Yeah." And I was like, okay. So they wheeled me into surgery and I got my tubes tied. So I had to come home trying to recover from birthing a child and having my tubes tied at the same time. So it was my stomach and
Yeah.
it was everything. But it was really hard to, like, when I did feel pain, when I did feel tired, was it my lupus? Was it just being postpartum? What was it? It was not an easy thing to figure out. And um having to try to navigate through nursing, um it was really hard because I just in my head kept thinking how much my medication was going to affect my milk supply. Is my baby getting anything? It was always going to be, this is my fault, this is my fault, I can't produce enough. That was probably one of the biggest stressors, was figuring out, if now that he's out of my body, can I still take care of him? Can I still feed him? We did a mix of nursing and formula because it was such a big stressor for me that I knew my stress was making it even worse. And my stress, I was like, I'm going to go into a flare up because I am just stressing so much about making sure this baby gets fed. And that was a really hard thing to deal with afterwards. Because again, it's like, is it me? Is it my lupus? Is it postpartum? I can't put my finger on what's going on here. But we just have to take this day by day. And we eventually transitioned him a little bit more. I think I was only able to nurse him for 3 months before I said, this is really hard. Plus, I was going to be switching medications again, and the medication was going to be the old one that I was on before my pregnancy. And I was scared. I was like, this is not going to be compatible with him. Like, I don't want to pass anything to him. I don't want to be on these medications. So that postpartum part was hard.
Well, speaking off of the medication, so both when you guys became pregnant, you had to switch your medications. What were they switching? Like for me, I had to switch from Cellcept to now I'm on azathioprine or something like that. So I'm on that right now. I'm on that right now, and then all my other meds have stayed the same, and they said those should be fine. But they said if I become pregnant, the second it's out of me, they're switching me back. And I'm like, okay, I didn't want to nurse in the first place. Who knows if that'll change whenever that time comes. But personally, um, TMI, I just hate nipples, honestly, and I just can't see myself letting something latch onto it. So I personally don't want to nurse, so I was fine with that. Um, but yeah, a lot of women want to nurse, and the thought of, okay, you're going to switch back very quickly. Maybe you can't nurse anymore because you're putting those medications back into your body. So like, what were the medications that you had to kind of switch back and forth to that are safe for pregnancy that you were taking before?
So they took me off of Cellcept, so that was like the major thing. There was a couple of like blood pressure medications that I had to kind of switch out that were not compatible during pregnancy. But yeah, I was doing prednisone, Plaquenil, and then I was doing, all my other regular like medications like blood pressure and things like that. Um, and I started azathioprine as well during that. But I never had to switch back. Like I've just been on that for years. And yeah, they were never like, I never had like a big enough flare that I needed to add or go back to those. Because Cellcept is a very strong immunosuppressant. That is like heavy duty. But and I was basically on it my entire life because that was like the original treatment that I started on when I was diagnosed. So
hmm I've never been a fan of Cellcept ever.
yeah,
So,
it really, yeah, yeah, the higher doses, like it just, and for me, like annihilated my stomach, like
oh, yeah, I could tell you
so
stories.
bad. Oh God, it was awful. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Um, Vanessa, have you ever been on Cellcept?
Yeah, I think that was actually the one that I was on originally that they said this is the one. And it wasn't as soon as you find out you're pregnant, it was don't even try to get pregnant until if this is in your body. So I had to switch my medications. It was, I want to say 9 months to a year prior to us even trying. So I had to not only switch it out because then you have to make sure that your body can take it while you're pregnant. So they want to make sure that you become accustomed to it, that there's no major changes with your labs before you get pregnant. So they can say, okay, you're stable with these new medications being off CellCept, whatever they switch it out to, that you can remain stable. So then that way it's kind of not a factor when you get pregnant that, okay, what changed here? Is it the medication? Because they don't want to keep trying to change medications. And there's only so many medications you can take that are compatible with pregnancy.
Classifications that you can look up. There's like A, B, and C, like classifications from the FDA that'll tell you exactly like how much is like will cross the placenta to baby. And I know there are some medications that you cannot stop, but that's like you have to weigh the risk with the benefit. So if somebody's listening to this and is on that journey, just know that you can like look all that stuff up, the different classifications of your medications, and talk to your team about it.
Yeah. And I think that the dose amount too that you're taking all plays, a factor. Some people are on super high doses and some people are not. So depending on what it is, everyone's going to be, a little bit different. And that's what's so hard about lupus is that I never hear anyone's story that's the same. And it's really hard to relate when you're going through these things and you can't relate to anybody because everyone has a different story. Nothing seems, consistent, but you hear things that are like you can chime in on, like, oh yeah, Cellcept, I know that person. Oh yeah, prednisone, I know prednisone. Like you have these certain things in common, but that you wish you didn't have in common. Like honestly, I wish we weren't doing this conversation right now. Because what it means is we all have the same crappy thing in common. But at the same time, I'm so happy that we're able to share this together and that it is hard to find people that you can relate to, even on a small degree. And so being able to hear your guys' stories is just like makes me feel a little bit more, oh, okay, I'm not so alone here.
Exactly. Yeah. The more people's stories I hear, and whether it relates to me or not fully, it just feels comforting in a way. Selfishly, it feels comforting in a way because obviously you don't want someone to be going through that, but the fact that they are and you can relate to them in some degree gives you that kind of comfort and peace with it and acceptance of what you're going through, which I feel is really important. And hard to get there to the acceptance part. But yeah. Did you guys want to add? You guys, I had my list of questions, but I think when you both did your your stories, you hit them all like one after another after another perfectly. We can end this on a question. So if you guys were to give advice to anyone that they're listening right now and they just found out they're pregnant and they have lupus, what would kind of be something that maybe you would have wanted to hear back when you were going through this journey, or something that you would want to tell them?
Adriana, I'll let you take that one because this is a hard one for me. That's a hard one to think about.
I think the most important thing is to, at least from personal experience, I think is that you have to do whatever you feel is best for you, right? Like I think so often you go to a team or you have a doctor that maybe is not on your side, but if something that you really want, I think it's important to do the research, find the team of doctors that is going to help you and is going to, help carry you through the journey. And having a, good support system. I had a great support system, with my family, with my mom and my brothers and my dad. I think that is something that is also uh, like so important, just to have people that are on your team, not just on the medical sense, but like in the emotional sense too. Um, it can be very emotionally draining if something happens, and there's a lot of variables when you have lupus that are co-diseases that you can be affected by, not just the lupus. It might not have, um, you know, might not give you a successful pregnancy. But my hope is that in listening to our stories, because they were a little bit traumatic and difficult, that it gives, anybody listening, um, the power to know that they can do it and they'll get through it. And eventually they'll have kids that are, that you're just assistants to, and you're just there to do what, uh, whatever they want. Um, and becoming a mom can come in several different ways. So if it's something that you really want to do, remember that there are different ways of becoming a mom other than just you yourself carrying a baby. So I hope that whoever is listening to this, we give like a little bit of hope, and they focus on what uh, what will the outcome of be, and not just all the scary stuff that has happened.
I wanted to touch on something really quick, like the
Yeah.
infertility,
Mhm.
because I was also on, oh my gosh, what is it called? The the chemo,
Yeah, Cytoxin.
Cytoxin. I was on Cytoxin
Hmm.
for 6 months, so it wasn't as long as you were on it, but that was always
Hmm.
a big regret I had. Was I was admitted to the hospital, really bad flare, and they said, "Do you want to freeze your eggs?" I think I was
Hmm.
20, and I was like, "No, why would I do that? Like, you're gonna have to do another step. I'm already suffering. Like, don't touch me." So I was like, "I'll be fine. I don't even want kids right now." And then come a couple years later, I'm healthy, and I'm like, "Yeah, I want to have a baby." And I just start thinking about that. And like I lost my period for 4 years. So there was nothing. And then when I got my kidney transplant, I was lucky enough where like I started getting a period again right away. And but that was always in the back of my mind because we've been trying to have a baby and it hasn't happened yet. And I keep going back to I should have done. But it's like I am still young. It hasn't been that long that we've actually been trying, but it's just been such a disappointment month after month after month, and me thinking like I had the opportunity. But again, like it could be so many factors as well. But but yeah, thinking about fertility could be a big scary thing. Big scary
Hmm.
thing, but it's still like you found out when you're about to start IVF. And it was like
Hmm.
a miracle, literally a miracle
Hmm.
that you ended up being
Yeah.
pregnant right before. And it's all about timing, and it's if it's meant to be, it will be. And like you said, either way, if I keep telling my sister she wants to get pregnant, but she doesn't want to actually have a baby. So I'm like, hello, you can do it for me. But
Yeah.
I don't have like 80 grand to pay you, but you'll be the
Yeah.
aunt.
It's an
Yeah.
option. It's an
Yeah.
option. Think
Yeah, it
about
is an option.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I had a cousin that said that to me. She told me, she's like, if you want a baby, she's like, I will be your surrogate. So that is definitely something. I just, I think that you touched on the infertility and all that, especially if you are young and you are diagnosed young. Those are hard conversations that you probably don't want to have with your partner or your doctor, but I think that you should. I think that's, if you have the opportunity to freeze your eggs, yeah, do it.
Hmm.
Do it. Yeah, for those that are listening. But also on the same token is that it will happen for you. I know you'll be a mom. You just visualize yourself holding that baby, you
Yeah,
know.
it'll happen. And
It
one
will
day
happen.
you guys will know and it'll be a full circle moment. But but yeah. Um, do you guys have any last comments, questions, anything before we say goodbye?
Well, just thanks for having me again. I love these conversations, and I love, sharing our story and hopefully giving a little bit of hope to other patients out there, or helping somebody not feel as lonely and alone, because this disease is very isolating and it can be a very lonely thing to live with lupus. So I hope that, you know, just a little bit, someone feels a little bit less alone
Yes.
because of these conversations.
Yeah, like you said, you looked up stuff and you couldn't find a lot of stuff on people with pregnancy and lupus, and it was hard for me. I looked up stuff and there was literally nothing that I could find. And even the whole situation of, when I first found out I was diagnosed and having to have an abortion, I couldn't find anything on that, not one thing. So when I was going through the loss of that pregnancy, people were like, oh, miscarriages are so hard. I'm like, but I didn't have a miscarriage. That's not what it was. It was because, and I blamed my lupus, it was because of lupus, and people still did not understand. And I, to this day, still don't see a lot of content or information about having to, you know, the loss of a pregnancy because of lupus. It's a really hard thing to find any information on, and even doctors don't say a lot. Just, it can happen. It's all very factual and it can happen, but hearing the personal side of it is not very common. So thank you for allowing me to speak, and hopefully, give someone else out there who's been through the same situation a feeling of not being alone. It is a very lonely thing to feel like, even with any pregnancy problems, but with lupus induced pregnancy issues, it's like a double on double on double, like things are piling up, and it's so hard. It's so hard to come to terms with, but being able to talk about it just makes it feel that much more human and that much more like we can process it a little bit better. So
Exactly.
thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about it.
Yes, of course. Thank you guys. I'm very grateful that you guys are here today. And I'm sure once this is up, there's going to be one person that's listening from somewhere that is in the same boat as one of you guys. And it'll really help them. Whether they reach out to you guys or not, it will help somebody. And that's all that we can really, really do, just putting our stories out there. And it does help people. All the stuff we've gone through is helping others through their hard times, which is amazing and cool and crazy all at the same time. Um,
Yeah.
but thank you guys again so much. This was really fun. I feel like we talked about so many different things and
Yeah.
just really appreciate you guys. So thank you.
And thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
you. Thank you for having us.
Of course. Hopefully we can all talk again sometime soon. But for now, you'll catch me in San Diego. So
Yeah, okay. You'll be here for the walk too, so that's good.
wait, when is it?
The walk is November 2nd.
I will be there. I'll sign up
Yeah.
today. All
Okay.
right, guys. Have a great rest of your
All right.
weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.